Day one of post-injunction shenanigans in Washington. 51 or 55 page opinion that took 3 weeks, superbly crafted. This is the theme of the Democrats and the Liberal Party is, if they don't like it, they just cheat.
Brian Zelensky's move. According to Fox News, there's an exodus from West Coast states due to left-leaning politics. Among those moving to free America are Washington state gun owners relocating to Idaho. One such individual is Brian Zelensky, who moved his family and his arms retail business to Post Falls, Idaho, just 20 minutes east of Spokane via I-90. Zelensky explained to AmmoLand that Washington's political climate and restrictive gun laws prompted the move. Zelensky, a Washington native, previously worked as the general manager at Wade's Arms in Bellevue. This location is near the national headquarters of the Second Amendment Foundation and the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. Zelensky remarked, "Everything is political, whether it's the car you drive, where you work. You're wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask." In an online video, Zelensky expressed frustration over a recent ruling by a Cowlitz County Superior Court judge. The judge declared the state's 2-year-old ban on large-capacity mags unconstitutional, but the decision was quickly stayed by a state Supreme Court commissioner. Zelensky criticized Democrat State Attorney General Bob Ferguson, who secured the stay just 88 minutes after Judge Gary Basher's 55-page opinion in mid-April. "We saw an attorney general who wants to be your governor that is willing to violate all of the trust that the public has for that position," Zelensky stated in his video. "And I know there's not much trust left with the attorney general." In 2022, Washington banned magazines capable of holding more than 10 cartridges. Since then, Attorney General Ferguson has sued at least 2 gun shops for violating this law. The second lawsuit led to the case before the Cowlitz County Court. Last year, the state banned assault weapons through legislation Ferguson had been advocating for several years. This law is currently being challenged in federal court. In the same video, Zelensky urged viewers to support Republican gubernatorial candidate Dave Rickert. Rickert is a former 7-term congressman and King County sheriff who oversaw the capture and conviction of the Green River killer Gary Ridgway. Zelensky believes Rickert is the only candidate who can defeat Ferguson in November. Recent polling by Echelon Insights shows Rickert slightly ahead, but the election is still months away. Gun laws might be a significant issue in the Washington election. Crime rates have increased, and Rickert, a former sheriff known for chasing a rioter down a Seattle street, may have an advantage over Ferguson, whose policies are viewed by many as lenient on crime. Ferguson is supported by anti-gun advocates, while Rickert has backing from law enforcement. Last week, the State Department of Licensing reported an increase in active concealed pistol licenses. There were 695,321 active CPLs at the end of April, up from 691,107 at the end of March. Despite recent blue politics, Washington has always had a high percentage of adults licensed to carry, regardless of their politics. North Idaho Arms has been operating for about 4 months in Post Falls, just across the border from Spokane. 4 months later, Zelensky opened North Idaho Arms in a small strip mall on the west side of Post Falls. The store's location allows him to avoid Washington's restrictive laws. Zelensky told AmmoLand the move was the single best thing I've ever done, and also the hardest decision he's ever made. He is now in a state where modern semi-auto rifles and original capacity magazines are still legal. The state does not use consumer protection laws to drive him out of business. He is registered to vote, is shopping for a home, currently renting, and pays about 70 cents less for a gallon of gasoline. His family is much happier. Washington has used the consumer protection law against the interest of the Second Amendment, he observed. He plans to encourage Idaho politicians and lawmakers in other states to adopt laws prohibiting the use of consumer protection laws against the Second Amendment. Next month marks the one-year anniversary of his move to Idaho. Zelensky says he talks to dozens of people each week who are considering a similar move, indicating he's not alone in his frustration. He simply got tired of living in a state where the government controls every aspect of life.
Well, he has a small advantage, and that's with the other conservative who's still gobbling up resources, gets 100% of your support, and you guys can take one step to try to take Washington State back. You know, I'm hoping that Representative Reichert, Sheriff Reichert, at the end of the day, the guy that caught the Green River Killer, did everything I could, try to push people your way, try to raise some awareness. I know Bill Kirk feels the same way, and we're going to continue to do that. He said, BZ, man, you sure working hard for those boys in Washington, and pretty hard for those guys that are 300, 400, 500 miles away from me. So just imagine how hard I'd work for you, the guy who lives 3 miles away from me.
Washington's crackdown on armed rights. According to Zelensky, Democrats spent a significant amount of time trying to outlaw magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. Bob Ferguson, a Democrat and current gubernatorial candidate, was the main proponent of a ban, citing the Consumer Protection Act, a statute designed to protect citizens from unfair or deceptive commercial practices. In 2022, Washington legislators banned the production, import, distribution, and sale of high-capacity magazines but did not ban their ownership. The following year, they enacted a similar ban on assault weapons, primarily targeting semi-auto rifles and various components used to make them. These measures were claimed to be necessary to prevent mass shootings. The Violence Project, a database supported by the National Institute of Justice, examined mass shootings in the United States from 1966 to early 2020. It found that assault weapons were used in about 25% of these incidents. The project documented cases where 4 or more people were killed in a public place with firearms. According to the Violence Project, 8 mass shootings have occurred in Washington since 1966, with handguns being the weapon of choice in most incidents. However, some homicides involve semi-auto weapons, such as the 2016 shooting at a house in Mukilteo. Ferguson became an advocate for the ban after a tragic incident that killed 3 people. After Washington Governor Jay Inslee signed the assault weapons ban into law, the Zelensky family moved to North Idaho in June of last year, a little over 2 months later. I really got to see how bad things were starting to get, Zelensky noted. We finally reached a crescendo. Zelensky opened his own gun store just 5 minutes across the border from Washington. In his previous home state, it is now illegal to manufacture, buy, or sell semi-auto firearms. However, he operates in front of a wall in such weapons in Idaho. He cannot sell restricted firearms directly to Washington residents due to additional procedures like background checks and the need to transfer them to a licensed dealer in Washington. However, Zelensky states he does not card anybody for anything unless there's a serial number on it regarding new parts or magazines. We adhere to all Idaho state laws, he declared, but it is illegal in Idaho to buy certain things as an adult that maybe you can't buy in Washington. Similarly, Washington state residents often see Idaho license plates outside of medical marijuana clinics. The sale of pre-rolls and gummies, which are illegal in Idaho, will not be stopped, according to Zelensky. At the end of the day, he says it is the consumer's responsibility to ensure they're not breaking the laws of their home state.
Recount, recount, recount. Oh, we found votes. Boom, election's over. The goal was that we had the injunction for, I was hoping maybe a day or 2 or 3. All of the commitments that we made to our customers, we honored. Every single commitment we honored. But what we saw is an attorney general who wants to be your governor, and I know there's not much trust left with the Attorney General. You guys can see in Western Washington and Eastern Washington that it does not represent you. If you're not ready to get behind Dave Reichert head-to-head versus Ferguson, Reichert has a small advantage.
Learning from mistakes. This spring, Washington's gun shops were bustling with activity as customers anticipated a potential injunction against the state's magazine ban. In response to a lawsuit filed by the Attorney General, a retailer questioned the legality of the ban and continued to sell magazines even after it took effect. Zelensky processed and prepared dozens of pre-orders for shipment at Post Falls. He committed to customers that if an injunction happened, this would legally import the magazines into Washington and mail them out. On April 8, a federal court and a Washington state court both found the restriction unconstitutional. However, the state Supreme Court issued an emergency order obtained by the Attorney General 88 minutes later, preserving the ban. During that brief window, Zelensky sent out 147 magazine cartons. "I know we have some happy customers because we've heard from all of them," stated Zelensky. He expressed concern about the future of the Second Amendment in Washington, noting he has friends and relatives there. "But the main thing is, I've learned from the mistakes of Washington on how we're going to safeguard Idaho," he added. "So if I can work to help Washington and now help Idaho into the future as well, it's kind of a win-win." As of now, gun laws are great in Idaho, he declared. There are no regulations on high-capacity magazines or semi-auto rifles, and citizens can legally acquire a machine gun as long as it is registered. Idaho also recognizes constitutional concealed carry, one of about 30 states to do so. However, Zelensky is advocating for a ban on Idaho's use of Consumer Protection Act to limit free speech. He noted that the state GOP has become more divided in recent years, mirroring national trends. He hopes to see greater unity within the party. "If we can safeguard Idaho against this liberal mindset," Zelensky added, "I think we could be the beacon that other conservative states see and go. We want to be more like Idaho." That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.